Hello, Steve White, Trek Boy 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, I'm happy to announce that Star Trek Prodigy has been cancelled. And it hasn't just been cancelled, they're actually removing the first season from the platform. That's how bad it was. It was just wasting space. They just had to clear space for something that might actually get viewers. So why was this show cancelled? Why didn't it work? The same reason the other shows aren't working, the other new Trek shows aren't working, because they're not Star Trek. This essentially was a Star Wars show. It was basically a ragtag group of renegade kids who were basically outrunning the evil Emperor in their Millennium Falcon, style Starfleet ship. And just everything about it said Star Wars, not Star Trek. But the show itself was fun. I actually enjoyed it. The characters were good. The CGI environments and art and everything and the effects were really great. It was enjoyable to watch as a Star Wars show, but it wasn't Star Trek. Nothing about it, aside from a little bit of lip service and a few speeches from Janeway, nothing about it said Star Trek. And that's the bizarre thing. I mean, these people creating the shows have no idea what Star Trek is. They can't tell Star Trek from Star Wars, and they just think the way to make Star Trek good is to make it more like Star Wars. And they keep doing that. And all they do is alienate the fan base that already exists. They don't engage new fans because there's nothing to engage them. Star Trek, the original Star Trek, created a universe that people wanted to live in. They wanted to invest in that, and they were willing to spend a lot of money in content and books and things and DVDs and just watching the show over and over again on syndication or whatever, because they wanted to immerse themselves in that universe and believe that it exists, and it was a consistent universe between the shows and everything. And now we just get this mess of a new Trek universe where between shows and between seasons and between series, there's no consistency. The look of the aliens, the events that are supposed to happen, the look at the ships, everything just changes between seasons and shows. There's no consistency between. When you look at Lower Decks, which is almost canon so far as visually, it looks just like the original Star Trek because they've got different contracts and everything, so they can use the content differently. Whereas Discovery, Strange New Worlds, Prodigy, different companies, different contracts, they don't appear to be able to use the same elements, or they don't want to. So they just end up with these un-Star Trek Star Trek shows in name only that don't engage people like Star Trek did, because they're not Star Trek. They don't have the elements that made people want to believe in Star Trek and actually invest in that universe and immerse themselves in that universe and maintain that universe, because it was somewhere they wanted to be, something they wanted to be real, something they wanted to see happen one day, that they would dream of happening someday. And it's just so bizarre. But it is bizarre. Like, I saw a quote from Dan and Kevin Hageman, and they said that Star Trek had taught them to strive for a better future, and while the show being cancelled was disappointing, they had faith that the show would be picked up by a new home to help grow a fervent fan base and inspire the next generation of Star Trek fans. Well, how can you inspire Star Trek fans if you don't have a Star Trek show? It's insanity. And these people wonder why the shows aren't successful. The only show to appear in the Nelsons and to actually get any ratings was Star Trek Picard Season 3, the last part of that. That appeared in the top 10 twice. And the other shows haven't rated. They haven't really had any sort of impact on, the general public. No one really knows about these shows other than Star Trek fans and so forth. And they care more about agendas and activism and politics, current day politics, than they do about actually creating a good show or science fiction. Yes, the original Star Trek was political, but it did it as allegory. It did it with a humanist flair, and it did it with some intelligence. So everyone was able to watch that show and was able to open minds and make people think, whereas these other shows, they're basically just validating people and alienating and vilifying others. It's just not working. That's why one of the first things that was cut when Paramount had to start cutting money on their content was Discovery, because it cost a huge amount of money, didn't get any views, and didn't really move the needle in any way with Star Trek. So that was cancelled. I think they reshot part of the last season to make it a series ending instead of just a season ending, which is something they were rumoured to have done a bunch of times, because I think they're pretty close to being cancelled a couple of times. And according to Doomcock and people like that, it was cancelled every year, but obviously it wasn't. But so they're getting a 5th season because it was already mostly filmed, I think. And yeah, it's sad because I think I was watching it one time. I thought, God, imagine if they did a Star Trek show with this production value. It'd be amazing to see like Star Trek ships and Star Trek aliens, and it'd be great. But we never got it. Now when you look at something like Lower Decks, which is totally different and actually seems to actually be visually canon with the other Star Trek series, it's just so bizarre that between the different shows, the different creators, the different contracts, the different IP use and everything, it's just this universe is a mess. There's no consistency, and people just can't engage in it, and it's just not inspiring people, and that's why it had no viewers, and they cancelled it and removed it from the platform to make room for something that people would watch. So yeah, I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Thanks. Bye.